underneath the wayside. We don't find out much about the details. We learn about them, but not much. Not the situation with Brian Kelly. He has now turned down 2 settlement offers from LSU in a situation that could get ugly, with the Bayou Bengals and the former LSU head coach in Brian Kelly owed more than $50 million. So far, he has said no to 2 offers. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. Gerhard Mathangani and Patrick Walsh with you. Patrick, I really find this interesting because a lot of times, like we say, once these buyout numbers come out, you just expect both sides to just handle it and everything is fine. Same thing with James Franklin, same thing with Sam Pittman. I don't know their exact details. Like, for the most part, it's like this amount of money paid about this amount of days, and then annually it's this. But typically these stories just kind of go away. But not the case here with Brian Kelly.
I don't remember a firing as publicized as this one, with all the outcry from the governor, from Brian Kelly now turning down settlement offers, and like all of this, all of the hoopla surrounding a head coach being fired. I don't remember an instance quite as entertaining as this. I think I mentioned that you know, when the whole governor comments came out, it sounded like something straight out of the offseason. You know, we're in July, we're just before SEC Media Days. We're trying to figure out something to talk about before, you know, the season kicks in. But the fact that came out in the middle of the season still was a little bit shocking. And then this, Brian Kelly turning down these settlement offers. I'd love to hear what you think. Honestly, I don't blame him.
No,
I mean, especially after how things have gone afterwards.
Yes, for sure. I'm right there with you because of the way things have gone, and to fire him mid-season. If I'm Brian Kelly, I'm not taking these offers both offers that were publicized. And I know that you had those numbers, but it was immediately after Scott Woodward came over and said, hey, $25 million lump sum. That's less than half of what he was owed. I'm saying no to that for sure. And then the second offer, $30 million, 2 payments. And I'm not a multimillionaire, but I'm not saying no to any. Like, so even from my perspective, if I'm Brian Kelly, I'm like, hey, you want to put those 2 numbers together? You want to put that $30 million and that $25 million together and you pay me that? Then that's fine. But outside of that, I'm not taking it.
It's like, you know, for the rare occasion that if anyone's watching here ever wins the lottery, first of all, congratulations, and great for you. You never have to work again. But it's like the question, all right, do I take the lump sum or do I take the deferred payments? And in this situation, I mean, $25 million lump sum from Scott Woodward. Yeah, maybe. And then you look at the other one, $30 million in 2 payments. It feels like LSU's like trying to backtrack a little bit, right the wrongs, try to save some money on the books. And honestly, Brian Kelly, good for you for standing on business.
For sure.
Because you need to get your money. And we need to do away with these ridiculous buyouts in college athletics because, you know, LSU is just going to reload because they just have an infinite amount of money, it seems like. But when you have some of these other colleges that don't really have the money and, you know, you're trying to hire away a good coach and then he doesn't pan out, then, you know, you're just shooting yourself in the foot for the next 5 years after because you're just paying buyouts.
That's exactly right. And I think, too, if you have a situation like if you're Brian Kelly, he's young enough to still coach again. So he's still young enough to make a lot more money. But these contracts, they have buyouts for a reason. It's there to protect the school and to protect the person that is coaching the school. What would be your minimum number as far as like, hey, if they're going to come to you with a lump sum, what would be your like, hey, I would take it for this amount of money, or would it be 54 as the floor?
Well, let me do some quick math here real quick. So 18. So I was gonna say probably 2/3 of what I was owed, which in his case would come out to $36 million.
36, all right.
And the highest offer was $30 million over 2 payments. I would take, hey, if you give me $36 million right now, I will gladly take that, save you a few bucks. But I think part of it was just him being stubborn. And just being so mad at LSU. And everything that transpired that he's like, no, I'm going to stand on business. You could pay me $70 million right now, and I'd still say no.
That's exactly right. I was thinking about it too, and I think that I would not. I know I said not anything under 54. I do think, along with you, you had it at 2/3. I think I'd go somewhere in that same neighborhood. I think maybe 40 to 45 would be the number I would say. Okay, we probably won't haggle after this. Now, if this were my last job, like for Brian Kelly, if he thought that he was never going to coach again, then I would say, hey, the whole 54, because now because he might think that he's on the back nine of his career. This would be the last chance at this kind of money if he goes to a smaller school, smaller whatever. But he's still young enough to get another big job, in my opinion. So he's still young enough to be able to make $4, $5, $6, $8, maybe $10 million at another gig. And so that's the reason why I think my number would be slightly less than what the buyout is overall. But the two buyouts that were there, no way in the world. No way in the world.
I mean, especially from Scott Woodward. Scott Woodward trying to do damage control after he knew, oh man, here we go again. Even though it later was corrected that the Jimbo Fisher buyout was not technically under his watch. Just Jimbo Fisher being brought over to Texas A&M, and the original contract was under his watch.
Right, that's exactly right. And so these buyout stories get crazy, and the Brian Kelly story will get crazy. We'll continue following that one. That's just part of our topics on today's show. It's a huge day after a big weekend in college basketball and in college football. We will dive a little bit more into the Brian Kelly story. Auburn nearly goes to Nash Vegas and almost pulls off a win over a top 25 team of first time playing without their fire head coach in Hugh Freeze. DJ Durkin takes over, and the offense looks like something we've never seen before.
Never seen that.
from Auburn this
Shot out
season.
of a cannon.
Yeah, exactly. Texas also gearing up for a major matchup. They were off last week, and then this week, obviously a top 10 and a rematch of a game in the SEC. And then the Oklahoma Sooners also looking to keep their hopes alive with a big week this week. And we will talk with our good friends Roger Wallace. We'll preview that Texas-Georgia game with Roger. We're also previewing and talking about what's ahead for Vanderbilt with our good buddy Corey Curtis and Brian Brinkley as Oklahoma prepares for yet another huge game here for the Sooners. They could lock up. They could possibly lock up a spot in the playoff. This is Alabama, Oklahoma this week. According to the AP poll, we will get the committee's rankings tomorrow, but according to the AP poll, they're, I think, 11th right now in this week's ranking. So anywhere between 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah, and I still think they're going to need a Texas loss here probably this weekend, if not against Texas A&M, for them to even have a shot because, as we talked about, Texas obviously has the tiebreaker over Oklahoma. That's when you think about with the committee, because if you go by what the committee has gone by in the past, and head-to-head really matters.
It does, yes.
So right now Texas would have it over Oklahoma. But before we get going with the LSU stuff, it is so cold.
It is.
I left the north to get away from the cold, and right now it is. Yeah, it says it's 53 degrees. But I think the wind chill is like 42.
Yeah. I think this morning the wind chill was I had my heater AC off last night, and I woke up, it was like 69, and I live like on the third floor, so I mean like heat rises, so like it's supposed to be like, that's when I know it's cold outside, when we're not even above the 70s. But no, you're right. Like I think there was a cold front. I'm not a meteorologist, but I think there was a cold front that swept the south.
Just the whiplash though. Walking outside yesterday morning, it's 79 degrees. I'm walking out in shorts and a t-shirt, going to the grocery store, get my groceries for the week, and then I come back after hooping it up.
Oh, did you hoop it up?
Yeah, I did hoop it up.
Where?
So the place I live at, it's got a little rec center. It's not the greatest in the world, but no one was there, so I just got some shots up.
Okay.
And hopefully, I might go back tonight. Might try to see if there's anyone there tonight. Get some runs in. But
yeah. Do a lot of people play? They run pickup games.
So
and stuff?
I think when I was leaving to go to the grocery store, because I had to run back out, it was like 5 o'clock, and I saw people leaving. So I was like, oh man, I like just missed that. Sometimes it's good to just get shots up.
Yeah.
I don't think I had shot a basketball in like a few months, at least since I graduated college.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the last time I shot a basketball was probably the spring, maybe even before then, maybe the winter earlier this year. So I gotta get some shots up myself there too. But let's go back to LSU playing once again their first game with Frank Wilson there as their head coach. No Brian Kelly, of course, but the offense still. I mean, Brian Kelly's gone, but the offense still looked kind of stagnant. And obviously LSU did not score a touchdown. There you saw in the second half, Bama's defense was unbelievable towards the end of that game here. What were your overall takeaways? Because Alabama was on a 7-game winning streak. They had a bye, so that could work one of two ways. And then LSU coming back at their first game without Brian Kelly.
So I think LSU's offense is still concerning to me in regards to Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, coming into the season, we all thought he was going to be great. He was going to be the front runner for the Heisman and all of this great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the point where, it felt so stagnant in this game that they turned to Michael Van Buren, and he didn't really do anything either.
Right.
So, I mean, how are you going to give a guy confidence? How are you going to give any guy confidence if you're just going to pull him? But, I mean, as we talked about, those numbers aren't great.
No.
Yeah, he completed 18 of 21, but only 121 pass yards. And as we just talked about, LSU did not score a touchdown in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the flip side, the one thing that worries me about Alabama is also the offense.
Yes.
Because this is 2 straight games now where LSU's defense coming into this game, there were a lot of question marks.
Right.
And they had gotten blown out by Texas A&M specifically in the second half.
Yeah.
And it really felt like this was Alabama's chance to, put the game 2 weeks ago to rest with the South Carolina where it seemed like they just limped into the off week.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Ty Simpson ended his streak of at least 2+ passing touchdowns is a little alarming to me.
So do you think that this is a sign, more so of a sign of what might be the Achilles heel for Alabama? Because I think so too. Because I mean, you brought up a great point about LSU's defense just completely laying down. It's been horrible.
Yeah.
And I know they have good players over there. There'll be a lot of first round draft picks and Harold Perkins Jr. and all those guys. They have a really solid defense overall. But you're right. That defense did not look good against Texas A&M. So you would think that an elite offense like Alabama's would be able to take them over the top. They just weren't.
Right, and honestly, if it weren't for Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams, I mean, we probably would have been talking about a little bit of a closer game. But at the same time, I was watching the game, and the score said 20-9.
Right.
But it never really felt like the game was in question.
Yes, right.
Partially because the LSU offense just could not get anything done at all, and I think that's a great credit to Alabama's defense.
Right.
There were definitely some questions early on in the season. I mean, obviously, the first game of the season, there were major questions that needed to be answered.
Right.
And then you could go to the Georgia game. There were some questions that needed to be answered there for Kane Womack's defensive group. But this game in particular was big for me because it proved that they had a great game against South Carolina.
Right.
They limited Lenora Sellers and the wide receiver core, and the South Carolina run game has just been non-existent this year.
Yeah.
But the fact that you were able to also back it up with another game against LSU ahead of this week's game against Oklahoma with a guy that's looking to, try to get back on track in John Mateer.
Right.
The question there will be, all right, can you stop the mobile quarterback again? But I think this is a really nice step for the Alabama defense.
Yeah. This is huge for Bama's defense, and I think for Bama's offense, they're still not able to run the ball with any kind of consistency, and they're still not able to run the ball with any kind of, true 56 yards against that LSU team last week. This has been a sign for a long time. However, the defense has been good, and we got a chance to hear from Kalen DeBoer about that unit led by Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan and a bunch of those other guys.
I feel like whether it's turned a corner, I feel like they keep getting better. I feel like last week, I think there were some things we gave up an explosive, on one play, and I thought we were stingy at times. They got a short field last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess, against South Carolina. And then, but I think there is a mindset that they have. I think there's a mindset that is built on trust, and guys are doing their job. There's less of the explosive plays where one guy makes a mistake, doesn't fit a gap. We're seeing less and less of that. And so, again, just doing your job, understanding how to play certain blocks, knowing where your help's at, leveraging, and then guys getting to the ball. They have a mindset right now where if they hustle, they will, end up creating breaks. We just missed a couple opportunities, I think, with the ball on the ground or ball, getting tipped in the air. And so, we'll keep making those plays, and they're timely, at the end of the game and early in the game to give us a little cushion there at the beginning. So I like the way that they play. I like their mindset, and again, I'm confident they'll go back to work again tomorrow.
And so Alabama last year beat LSU, then laid an egg against Oklahoma. I don't know if I see laying an egg, but there are some concerns. Now, I don't think they're going to score 3 points like they did last year. I think there are some concerns, though, for Alabama as you mentioned, in smaller ways this year.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that this game is going to be at Bryant-Denny is going to be a huge boost for Alabama. Obviously, Oklahoma coming in, having to win. They have to win because they just don't have a marquee win yet this year. They have to win this game in order to keep those college football playoff hopes alive. Meanwhile, Alabama trying to, get on the right side of momentum. It feels like it's just been a little bit interesting the last two games. But, you want to have good offensive momentum heading into the college football playoff because barring some disaster, Alabama's going to make it. I believe they're like a 99% chance of making the college football playoff right now. So it would take a disaster for them to miss it. But you can't overlook Oklahoma because they're going to be playing with absolutely nothing to lose.
Yep. And they, unlike Alabama, I think Alabama making the case that Alabama is not playing their best football. Oklahoma seems to have been kind of there's a resurgence there.
Yes.
And now 2 weeks to prepare for this Alabama team. It could get really, really interesting there in Tuscaloosa as they look to try to win again over the Crimson. Happens coming up this weekend. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Austin, Texas, previewing a huge game between the Longhorns and Georgia Bulldogs. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, it was a great weekend of college football. However, our good friend Roger Wallace, he got a reprieve from football for a little while and got to enjoy some basketball as the Texas Longhorns were off. Let's talk about the off week and just the way that you spent it, your team spent it, and what do you think that Sark and the players were able to accomplish there, getting a little rest?
Yeah, I think that's the key. Got some rest and kind of got away from everything. They got healthy. Not just because of the bye week, but the extra week off. He said Michael Tapp's good to go. Jelani McDonald's good to go. They both missed games. Ryan Wingo didn't miss games, but he missed most of the Vanderbilt game. He's good to go. It sounds like back at workout this morning. So three really key players. Michael Tapp, obviously, so important, especially a game like Saturday at Georgia where, crowd's going to be a factor, making sure everybody's lined up. Anthony Hill's coming off a couple of monster games. But I'm sure they took advantage of it. Sark said he watched a lot of football, said Kirby Smart texted him on his way to Starkville from the hotel in Tupelo and asked Sark what he was doing. He goes, well, I had breakfast, I worked out, and I'm going to watch you guys play. So, they formed a pretty good friendship over the years. But, yeah, it was nice to step away and just watch games. And now what a 3-week stretch for this team. And who knew this is where they would be when we were talking that Monday after the Florida game.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. Going into the SEC Media Days this past year, Gunnar Stockton and Arch were there. And I thought that Arch obviously had 8 million cameras following him and whatnot. And he almost looked like a Hollywood celebrity. Meanwhile, Gunnar Stockton, obviously he's a quarterback, so there was some people following him. But if you didn't know he was the Georgia quarterback, you would have thought he was just a member of the media. And it was the hype was very different between the two. However, they came in with interesting storylines because both guys played limited action the year before, but they made the most of their opportunities. Now that you see, 8, 7, 8, 9 games into the season, where do you see these two quarterbacks as they line up here for this big top 10 matchup?
Yeah, well, Gunnar Stockton around Texas is a 4-letter word because Longhorns figured they were going to win that SEC championship game. They knocked Carson Beck out of the game on the last play before the half with the lead and come out, and Stockton kind of ran through them and made enough plays, and eventually they beat him in overtime. So Texas was the first team to find out about this guy, and he's just, really solid. Arch is coming on. His last 2 games have been his best, even though he got knocked out of the Mississippi State game before they were able to win it. You see the numbers right there, but in the last 2 games, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he's thrown for, nearly 675 yards in that time. So Texas doesn't have the running game that Georgia does, and we saw that on full display with over 300 yards Saturday against Mississippi State, another team that you thought Texas might be able to run on, and they were not able to. So I think Texas is asking Arch to do more than Gunnar Stockton, and he has responded the last 2 weeks, and I think that's going to be the case Saturday night between the hedges for Arch Manning. And boy, Ohio State was a little unfair to make that, the coming out thing with all the hype. This one's a little different now. It's game 10. It's a top 10 matchup. Texas sneaks back into the top 10. Way more important, though, is somehow getting through the end of the season. I'm not going to say 3 losses eliminates them. I think if they can win 2 out of these 3, that means they've either beaten Georgia on the road or they've beaten maybe a number 2 or 3 ranked Texas A&M team, depending on the other conferences. But boy, what a turnaround it would be if the Longhorns, they're only an underdog for the second time this year. The other time was Columbus.
Roger, you mentioned that Arch has played better the last 2 games than he arguably has all season. But the thing that I kind of point to, and we talk about this more with the MLB more than anything, with teams getting that first round bye, that extended time off sometimes comes back to haunt these teams. Do you think Arch having an extra week off before this Georgia game could harm him or do better for him?
It's a good question because he played really well against Vanderbilt after going into protocol. So I guess the most logical answer is it will help because the guys around him got healthier. A Wingo, for instance, a Cole Hudson, who they moved to left guard in the Vanderbilt game, their starting center this year, gets another week to get ready, and other guys that we don't even talk about, I'm sure, were banged up. So it's not like it's the same situation. Georgia had to play, Texas didn't. So it's a little bit different than if both teams going with a bye. So I will say it helped him because it helped the guys around him. Not to mention, I'm sure he's beat up too. So I would think it's all good because he's coming off a positive performance. So he doesn't have any lingering thoughts, bad thoughts about how he played in his most previous game. So I would think all that helps, but I don't know if it makes a difference Saturday night. I think, what happens between that Georgia defense and can the Texas offensive line hold up? And suddenly can this defense at Texas hold up? They've given up 30-plus in 2 straight games.
Right, exactly. And this is a rematch of last year's SEC championship game. That, of course, was a thriller that went to overtime. And got a chance to hear from Coach Steve Sarkisian about this matchup 2.0.
Since we lost to Florida, the first bullet point when I talked to the team about what it takes is this is an SEC championship game. And that went back now for the last month. And so this week's not different that way. It's not like we're putting more into it than that. It is what it is. If we want to play in an SEC championship game, We got to win Saturday night. It just is what it is. And so let's focus on what we need to do today to make that happen. I think early on, we were a little too focused on what was down the road. And I think we've gotten a maturity of a team now that is focused on the task at hand and what's right in front of us. And that's what this game requires. This game against Georgia requires all of its attention that it deserves. And that attention isn't just Saturday night at 7:30. It's the attention that it deserves today at 7:15 this morning in our first team meeting.
Now, since the loss at Florida, going into that Florida game, the only other road game was, of course, the Ohio State game. They've had 2 road games, both against Kentucky and Mississippi State. Won both games. Both games went to overtime, but vastly different in the style of play. One was a 16-13 game. One game was north of 30, 40 points, 70 points scored each. What kind of game do you see playing out here at Georgia? And, of course, now if it goes to the extra session, Texas feels really good about their chances winning the last 2 overtime games.
Yeah, that's right, even though they lost the overtime game to Georgia. I don't know, maybe somewhere in between. I don't see how Texas can get into a shootout with Georgia because I think Georgia's defense will make more plays than Mississippi State did. Conversely, I think Texas's defense can make plays, but they've got to show something against that Georgia run game that they haven't shown the last couple of weeks. Now, Diego Pavia is kind of a wild card because nobody's really like him. And so a lot of what Vanderbilt did was because of, his unique skill set and what he can do to defenses and suddenly make defenses look really bad. Mississippi State's another matter. That's not a great offensive team, and they had a lot of success. Blake Shapen had a lot of success against Texas, and it's not like Texas was giving them short fields. They threw the one pick that was tipped, but that was in Mississippi State territory. So, I think it's somewhere in between. But I think it's going to take something for Texas, a takeaway, a defensive touchdown. Can't keep asking Ryan Niblett to be the guy. And I think Kirby Smart and them will have a game plan against Niblett. Sounds funny, right? A punt returner, but he's one of those special talents. But I just think it's going to be really tough for Texas to go down there unless they can get some takeaways, get some easy points to come out with a victory. And Sark was asked about Alabama. I think everybody uses that as a litmus test because they shocked everybody in their last year in the Big 12 when they went to Alabama. And he's like, well, that was a different team. It was a different time. I don't think you can keep going to the well on that Alabama game as kind of the baseline for, hey, you can, shock another team on the road like you did in Tuscaloosa.
Right, absolutely. Let's flip over to basketball for a second. I know that you spent some time with the women's basketball team watching them, but we'll start with the men first. Obviously, first game of the season, it was a very tall task playing against Duke. No shame in losing that basketball game. They bounced back, though, against Lafayette in their second game. What do you make of Coach Sean Miller after the first 80 minutes of ball?
Yeah, I think, the coaching cliche, work in progress, and a lot of times we roll our eyes at that, but I think that's exactly the way to describe because of all the new things with Texas, with the new head coach. Basically, everybody but Dalen Swain is playing for a new head coach, so it doesn't matter that guys like Kendall Weaver, who you see right there, are back for a second or third year at Texas because it's a new team. They have another Xavier transfer who didn't actually play last year because of injury. So, they've got a few home games where they should roll. Including Wednesday against Fairleigh Dickinson. And then they have Kansas City, the old UMKC on Saturday. They go to Hawaii. They go to Maui Thanksgiving week. They start with Arizona State, so we'll know a lot more about them. They led Duke at the half, and then Duke, turned on the gas. Cam Boozer turned on the gas in the second half, and that was that. But I'm still trying to figure it out. They've got some unique players. The Modest Vokatitis was the freshman of the year in the American. He's a 7-foot lean, he's got some skills, back to the basket, makes a lot of young man mistakes and maybe trying to do too much, but you can see that's a unique talent. So I'm as curious as anybody to kind of see it. There's no expectations. They're not ranked. We talked about it. They're picked 9th in the SEC. Sean Miller's a really good coach. Now we'll see how all this kind of comes together before SEC play starts.
Roger, one of the big things that Sean Miller said after the Duke game is the offense just was not there. I believe they had 6 assists in the entire game for the whole team. This game, they had 21 assists. Do you chalk it up still to the fact that it's Lafayette, or is it sort of a progression of the offense and instilling a team under a new coach.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start with that, but the other part is they had no transition opportunities against Duke, and that's where you get a lot of assists, and they had a little bit more of that, and then they just had a much more consistent half-court offense. So yeah, you see the numbers right there: Vokatitis 14 and 11 in just 24 minutes. So somewhere in between with this Texas team, but it is I'm sure scouting this team is pretty difficult right now because of how you have to take in, okay, the way Sean Miller, he talks, every time he's talked with us, he's emphasized pace, wants to really force the issue offensively. Doesn't mean quick shots. It just means kind of the way you play throughout the ball game. So he said that's a point of emphasis right now, and figuring out rotations and roles. And then, it's the age-old thing of, putting the ball in the basket, and they struggled to shoot the ball in the second half against Duke, shot it better against an outmanned Lafayette team. And I think you're probably going to see that the next couple of ball games as well. But I think it's so important just for them to play games,
right?
And kind of figure it out during games. They've had a lot of practice, and then they start game planning, when you get into the SEC and things like that.
Absolutely. Final thing before we let you go, you mentioned that you got a chance to see the women's basketball team, top 5 team there in the country, scored north of 120 points in their season opener. Then got a big win over Richmond, a top 25 basketball team.
Yeah,
beat that team by 30.
Win.
Yeah, very good win. What do you make of the women's basketball team and their chances to be able to start the season off on a strong note as they compete for a national championship?
Yeah, well, they're going to be 5-0, and then they're going to go to Las Vegas for that Players Era tournament, and they could be 5-2 and play games because they're going to play UCLA on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Right now, they're number 3, and then it's either Duke or South Carolina. So you either get 7 or 2 based on the rankings. So that's going to be quite a 2-game stretch. But, Vic Schaefer, if you follow the women's game, he loves to grind it out, and you better be ready to play his pace. As far as the defensive end, 94 feet, he doesn't care how big you are. You're going to guard full court if that's what required. They've got some new faces. This is Jordan Lee. She's a sophomore, really came on. She was actually their leading scorer in that national semifinal loss to South Carolina. She's a really good offensive player. Madison Booker right there. One of the best players in the country, never flashy, just gets it done. Aaliyah Crump right there is their only true freshman that they're going to rely on. She's been in double figures both games. There's not a shot she doesn't like. I think Vic Schaefer will temper that a little bit. But they're going to grind you out. They've got some veterans, but they need to figure out some other positions and some of the offense where it's going to come from. If it's not Booker or Aaliyah Crump, Rory Harmon is kind of evolved her game. She's an All-American point guard, but doesn't shoot and doesn't score a whole lot. So it's a work in progress. But I mean, Vic Schaefer's got a track record. He's going to be really good in February and March, and he's a hard team to play. And I'm guessing teams just don't like to play against him. We saw it. Richmond came in feeling pretty good, and by the end, I think they were ready to get their check and go home.
Exactly right.
They didn't even get as big a check because Texas did go there last year.
Oh, yeah. True. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure that the check's a lot smaller. Their scoring was a lot smaller as well.
But it's a good game for them too. It's a good resume game for Richmond to go on the road and play a top 5 team. Last year they didn't win their conference. They got that large and went to the second round. So that's an important game for them, I'm sure.
Right. And they've only given up, 107 points overall for the season, 51 and 56, and then they scored 123 in the other game. So it looks to be on a really dominant run here, both offensively and defensively. Roger, thank you so much for your time. Safe travels over to Athens, Georgia, and enjoy your time between the hedges.
All right. See you guys.
See you, Roger. Roger Wallace joining us from Austin, Texas. I'm jealous. If there's one football game I want to be, Bama, Oklahoma is a different one, but to me, that game between the hedges, because of what all is at stake for Texas, might be my favorite game of the week.
And honestly, I thought maybe College Game Day was going to choose that game to go to because of the playoff implications. But obviously, up in Up in the Steel City, there's a big one up there too with some more playoff implications.
Is that Pitt Notre Dame? Is that
Pitt Notre Dame? Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be really interesting because, like you said, I mean, both games have a lot of playoff implications there, and probably you don't want to have people have SEC fatigue, and so
right. I know there's been a lot of outcry about that.
Oh, for sure. And so Georgia and LSU, that game is set to kick off at 6:30 there in Athens, Georgia, between the hedges between Georgia and Texas, and another big game as they have basically a rematch of what we saw in the SEC Championship game just last year, back in early December. Coming up next here, we close up hour number 1. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, we broke down the upcoming Texas-Georgia game as both teams preparing for a top 10 battle, really, depending on where the committee polls are. But from what we saw from the AP poll, looks like Texas might be able to creep in there in the top 12. So we'll see that coming up tomorrow. Another big game last week was similar to what we saw with LSU, playing their first game after firing their head coach. LSU played Alabama in their first game after firing Brian Kelly. Auburn playing its first game after firing Hugh Freeze. They went to Vanderbilt, Patrick, and they gave Vandy a scare.
That they did, and honestly, you could put scare 3 times because I had a feeling that all of the Vanderbilt fans there were scared that Vanderbilt might lose to an Auburn team that people seem to downplay. We had talked about, honestly, Auburn coming into this game, one of 3 teams to not allow, I think it was 24 points all season.
Right.
And then to take a Vanderbilt team to overtime, a team that does have college football playoff hopes and aspirations. They kept them alive there this weekend, but I think there were 2 things that just shocked me more than anything. One, the play of that man right there.
That's right.
Throwing for over 300 yards. And that catch right there as well. Actually, I have 3 things. That catch, the play of that, and then that guy right there.
Oh, yeah. Diego Pavio was a magician once again. Both quarterbacks threw for over 300 yards in this game. You mentioned Ashton Daniels. They put the ball in the air 44 times. It was 31 of 44, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns. I know you and I are not in the building.
Yep.
But the sense that I got reading all the quotes that came out before the season, people might remember when there was some confusion before the season about what down was going to be what play call. So Derek Nix was going to call 3rd down, and Nix had said something about it, and then it kind of it was one of those off-season stories that you talk about. Right. It's an off-season story that kind of ended up blowing up, so to speak. But what I think we ended up seeing throughout the course of the year is Auburn's offense did not look crisp at all. And for the first time all season, it did. Did you think, and this is I'll tell you what I think here in a second, Do you think a lot of this was basically because of the communication, no matter what actually happens between first down, second down, third down in the helmets that we can't hear? But it felt to me like the offense was more streamlined than ever.
Yeah, and I mean, if these rumors were true that someone would call different plays for each drive,
right,
and then the head coach would be able to override everything, how can you instill game plans?
Right.
Like, how can you you have, maybe one opportunity every 7 minutes of game time, what it feels like, because I mean, you've got one guy calling first down plays, you've got another guy calling second down plays, you got a third guy calling third down plays, but the head coach can override all of them. It's like, how can you instill any confidence in your team? And I think under DJ Durkin and Nix there, they're just like, you know what? Why don't we just throw the ball?
Right.
And then that's what they did. 353 pass yards. That's easily the most by an Auburn quarterback this year, and a couple of touchdowns. I was thoroughly impressed with how well he played in this game and the wide receiving core.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a transfer from Stanford, but he's from Buford, Georgia. So he's right down the road from where Auburn is. But Auburn was able to throw the football and run the football with him. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground game, 89 yards running the football. As we said, talked about 2 touchdowns through the air, 4 touchdowns overall. You mentioned Cam Coleman, 10 catches, 143 yards.
My goodness.
A touchdown, an unbelievable touchdown. That one-hand grab you see there on the second bullet point that ended up forcing overtime there in the fourth quarter. The second 100-plus yard game this season in Missouri. It was the other one, 6 catches for 108 yards. This was a performance to me that I think if you are an Auburn fan, you feel a lot better about. There's no such thing as moral victories, of course, but you feel a lot better about the chances. Then it makes me scratch my head a little bit and say, was Jackson Arnold really that bad? Or was there more dysfunction off the field that made Jackson Arnold's play look bad? I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to say he was that bad, or fair to say that it's all coaches, but it's got to lie somewhere in the middle there.
I think it's more so that Jackson Arnold isn't that bad.
Right.
I do think now it's pretty much Ashton Daniels the rest of the way, based off this performance. But if you go back to the Arkansas game, Ashton Daniels only threw for like 77 yards.
Right.
And Arkansas has one of the worst defenses in the entire SEC.
Yes.
So that tells me a little bit, hey, there might be some dysfunction with this. There might have been some dysfunction with this Auburn offense, and they were able to figure it out here this week against Vanderbilt, who, the Vandy defense isn't that great either. They've been basically like a bend, don't break approach all year, and it's kept them in games. I mean, Mizzou was driving the ball against them. They just couldn't punch it in because Vanderbilt, they anchored down on the defensive. No pun intended, but maybe pun intended there. But I would be interesting. I'm interested to see how the Auburn team, finishes out this year after you've gotten some momentum here. I believe they have Mercer next.
Yes, it's the bye week, then
Mercer, and then
it's the Iron Bowl.
You can play some major spoiler, and who knows, maybe Oklahoma knocks off Alabama again.
Right.
And then Alabama's playing for their spot in the college football playoff in the Iron Bowl at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so I mean, as much as Alabama looks like a lock right now, there are certain situations that could play out where that Iron Bowl will mean a whole lot more. We got a chance to hear from DJ Durkin on his quarterback, Ashton Daniels, after the big win.
Got converted throwing the ball, made quick decisions, got the ball out of his hand, converted running the ball, just really, really managed our offense really well. That's my first time listening in and hearing and all that. I mean, he was just absorbing information and making good decisions throughout that entire game. I can't say enough, man. That kid's got some substance to him.
You mentioned it at the top. Jeremiah Cobb, 16 carries, 115 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but very productive day on the ground. Yeah. Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton combined for 21 catches, combined for more than 245 yards and 2 touchdowns. It seemed to me like there was a concerted effort to get our best players the football, make sure that we do, even if we have to force it a little bit. And I think that's from a mentality standpoint.
You're saying that's what DJ Durkin thought going into the season, that, hey, we need to do this? Yeah.
Absolutely. And he was very, very forthcoming in that press conference and last week. Last week, his midweek press conference on Wednesday, it's after the SEC teleconference, he said he kind of streamlined the way that they'll handle things, because he was still calling the defense. So the reporters naturally posed the question of, how will you handle things now being the head coach? Because as a defensive coordinator, you could literally just hop on the iPad right after and spend the entire offensive series breaking down the offense. Or breaking down what happened on defense. But now he had to almost split his time where he's still talking to his defense, but then also going over with the offense and finding out what they're doing. And you just heard there in that soundbite, that was the first time of him being on the headsets during those offensive play calls and understanding what they're trying to do there offensively. So that part to me screamed that he was willing to just get out of the way.
Right.
Just listen in and just be able to get out of the way, which I think could be huge for them there as they move forward. I just feel like there can be something built here for DJ Durkin as he moves along.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, like, I want to say that he has a shot at just getting the interim tag taken off, but I think that this game, while they found something on offense, I think this game is going to be the one that holds him back from being the full-time head coach just because of the defense.
Right.
And it just seems like he's just much better only focusing on the defense, which, I mean, heading into this game, that's all people would talk about.
For sure.
Yeah, Auburn can't do anything on offense, but they have a great defense.
Championship defense is what a lot of people were saying.
And then this was not a championship defense against Vanderbilt.
No,
and I think that just proves to me that he's just got to focus on the defense.
Focus on defense. And you mentioned that the offensive surge for Vanderbilt was led by Diego Pavia. And Pavia really made a statement. We'll talk a lot about this with Corey Curtis later on in our show. But Pavia, 377 yards. Let me pull up his rushing numbers, because I know he had at least one rushing touchdown there in the game. 18 carries, 112 yards, and a rushing touchdown there in the game. I love your graphic here.
Heisman
type game. So do you think that if he goes, I think at this point, I think he's going to go to New York. Maybe. It's interesting, but he could if he has a strong season, a strong finish, obviously.
And we'll talk more about Heisman stuff here at the top of the second hour, because there's a guy that just made his case for the Heisman this past weekend. But as you can see right there, he's doing the pose. He's embracing the culture. But 489 total yards. I mean, this dude, he just turned on. This wasn't a real game. He just turned on his Xbox.
Right.
He hopped on the sticks, and he was just playing EA college football. 26.
He was.
I mean, unreal. 489 yards, but hey, this guy's 3-0 against Auburn in his career.
That's the thing. And we talked about this last week, how I think we were talking about it with Julian, if he's going to start yapping at the Auburn defense saying, hey, I've had your number no matter what jersey I wear. Of course, he won as the quarterback there at New Mexico State, 2 wins with Vanderbilt, and you see the numbers. He has been a baller each and every time.
0 INTs.
That's the biggest thing. He did not turn the ball over to a championship level defense. More than close to 500 yards this past time out. 2 touchdowns the previous time, and then 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, more than 200 yards in that win with New Mexico State. I don't know of any quarterback that has had that much success against the Auburn defense.
I really think this is the present day Johnny Manziel.
Oh, me too. Yes.
I mean, like, this dude has just so much confidence.
Yep.
And honestly, if it weren't for I don't even want to say a lackluster performance against Texas, because he kept them in the game. And honestly, there was a point where, Vanderbilt could have won that game. I mean, you look at the Alabama game, you could kind of point to, Diego kind of lost in the game with the 2 red zone turnovers. But just the fact that this is even a conversation, it's still, I mean, when you look about when you think of overachievers in college football, you look at Clark Lee and Vanderbilt and what he's been able to do to a program that historically has just not been good.
Right.
And then you also look at Curt Cignetti just rewriting what it means to overachieve. I mean, that dude is changing standards for first year head coaches. I mean, he's lost 2 games?
Yes, 2. And obviously this past week we will revisit it here in a little bit with what Indiana was able to do on the road in Happy Valley against Penn State was unbelievable stuff, and just the drama of what happened there against Penn State. We will break all that down a little bit later on here on our program. Coming up next here, we will close up shop here, hour number 1, and we will talk about the AP poll just ahead of what we expect to be a really interesting shakeup in the college football playoff poll. That and more next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 1, wrapping up here. We were talking rankings last week because for the first time we got a chance to see what the College Football Playoff Committee, how they slated the teams. Of course, we were using the AP poll all the way until then, but if you paid attention, the AP poll really doesn't matter, but it does give us a sense, a clue of what the committee might do, because keep in mind, 1 through 4 at least, if not 1 through 5, of the AP poll was exactly the same as the committee's poll, and so it gives us kind of the upper echelon. Now there were some changes on the lower end. Of course, we saw what they did with the ACC with Georgia Tech and Virginia, Louisville, which was a little bit different from the AP poll and the coaches poll. But it's always really interesting to me how the AP poll slates theirs, because we get the AP poll on Mondays before the committee on Tuesday.
Right, and we'll jump right into it here, starting at 25 down. So 25 and 24, 2 group of 5 schools.
Yeah.
South Florida, I think, still has the edge over James Madison after the Tulane after Tulane beating Memphis. That was a huge loss for Ryan Silverfield. You never know if, there were some rumors last week about him potentially looking at the Arkansas job. You don't know if, he was a little bit distracted there. But, yeah, James Madison's at 24. But, I mean, the Sun Belt this year, I feel like the Sun Belt is down this year in comparison to years past.
Correct.
And I think that might hold them back a little bit.
Yeah, me too. And I don't think, because there's not another upper echelon team there in the Sun Belt, and it's not really their fault, because the league there is so much parity in the league.
Yes.
So there's going to be there will be some teams with not a great record. I mean, South Alabama, who is a team that we covered down here, I mean, they've been a favorite in just about every game, and they've lost games. 2-3 turnovers. They were beating teams up and down the field, but losing those games late. So all that to say, there's a lot of parity in the Sun Belt, which I think will hamper them. It's good for the league. It's good for the fans overall.
It's good for entertainment.
Right.
It's just not great for getting a group of 5 team in the college football
playoff.
playoff.
Absolutely.
Moving on here, Pittsburgh. That's going to be the big one to look at this weekend, hosting Notre Dame. College Game Day is going to be there. Pat McAfee returning home. He talked about how he's got to stay away from the casino there. Cincinnati out of the Big 12, and Tennessee, as we've talked about, is virtually eliminated from the college football playoff.
That's exactly right. Then moving into the top 20, we saw what the committee did with Virginia and Louisville, and these are teams like, you look at their record, and it's like, there's 1 loss, 2 losses here. But what we're seeing is this conference is so down, and I'm actually really happy as a fan of college sports. I'm actually really happy they're using their eyes. I mean, just the record doesn't tell you everything.
Right.
And so there you see Virginia at 20, Louisville at 19. I think those are properly slated. Michigan there at 18. USC, of course, they played earlier in the year, and then Miami there at 16. But I feel it's really interesting having all those ACC teams kind of crushed right there in the middle. Yeah,
and I honestly think it's between Virginia and Louisville. Yeah, the ACC is starting to implode a little bit. I think it's shocking still that Miami's at 16, because I think it's going to be Virginia and Louisville playing for the ACC championship, and the ACC is not going to get a 2-loss team in with an at-large bid.
Right, absolutely not. And Virginia's falls all the way is down 8 spots there. So inside the top 15 we go. Utah up a couple of spots, up to 15. Georgia Tech also moving up a little bit, 2 spots to 14. There you see Vanderbilt moving up a few spots there. I think it's 2 or 3 spots, 2 spots there to number 13, BYU and Oklahoma. So it kind of gives you a sense of, I know Oklahoma, obviously did not play last week, but it gives you a sense of, where this committee sees, or where the AP poll sees Oklahoma ahead of the Alabama game.
Yeah, but the one team I want to pay close attention to with the second ranking that comes out tomorrow is BYU. I'm interested to see where they put BYU after the loss. I still think they should be a college football playoff team, but that's going to also decide if my take of the SEC getting 5 teams into the college football playoff could come down to.
Right. Do you think with that performance that BYU will get punished a little bit more? Because, I mean, they scored 7 points. They did not look competitive at all.
A little bit. I don't know. We'll still have to see. Honestly, I think that's just like a game that you could just like throw the tape out on.
Yeah. So first loss of the season there for the Cougars. And inside the top 10 we go now. Texas there in at number 10. Of course, they didn't play last week, but setting up a huge matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs. Notre Dame there at number 9, ahead of Their big game against Pitt this weekend. Texas Tech moving up, one spot
Yes.
after beating BYU up to number 8. Oregon and Ole Miss there. And then inside of our top 5 we go. Georgia, Bama, Texas A&M, Indiana, Ohio State. It basically has remained.
Nothing has changed
Nothing.
at all.
Like-
But I will say it is interesting that Oregon moved down after the close win against Iowa.
Yeah.
And that could be huge for Ole Miss because that would mean Ole Miss would presumably play the ACC champion since they're outside of the
Right.
top 12, which would mean Oregon would probably have to play Texas if Texas were able to sneak in. And I wouldn't want to play a Texas team that barely sneaks in.
Absolutely. It's very, very same here. So it should be interesting as the committee poll comes out tomorrow night. Stay with us here. Southeast Sports Plus. Hour number 2 is next.
Outbound transmission?
Affirmative.
Crew ready?
Check.
Signal lock?
Check.
Downstream stations online?
Linked and locked.
Let's light this candle.
Flame on.
In 3, 2, roll show open.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Making plays like we made, incredible plays, and score at the end like that. It's a game of inches. It truly is. And the team refused to lose. Proud of this football team.
In that moment, I was just trying to, I knew where I was on the field, so I was just trying to, when I went up for the ball, just try to get my feet as far inside as I could and just come down with, make sure I came down with it, and I really do that. I seen the replay, and it was a really close call, and I felt like there wasn't enough to overturn it, and so it was a blessing to be able to make that play.
Well, the Indiana Hoosiers entered the week as the number 2 team in the country. It looked very dangerous for a little while as Penn State was looking to win that football game at home. But Omar Cooper Jr. had 6 catches, but his last one was the best one.
Yes.
A toe tap there to knock off the Penn State Nittany Lions. I know they came in as a big matchup. They came in as a big favorite there in this game, but Indiana made all the plays. And what a play, what a catch, and what a way to kind of save your reputation there if you're Indiana as a top 3 team.
I mean, you look at the scenario. Indiana was up big. Penn State came back. You know, they found some life with the run game. Nick Singleton with a huge run for a touchdown, and they had the lead late. And then, honestly, yeah, this is an SEC show, but this game probably changed the Heisman odds, not in the favor of the SEC, because, my goodness, what a catch. You could argue that it was one of the greatest catches of since the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely.
Since the turn of the decade.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. You definitely can. And not only was it the catch, but the stakes that were involved there in that matchup. Because I think a loss to Penn State, who was coming in on a 5-game losing stretch, that would have, I think, really hurt them in the polls had they lost that football game. Let's see what the committee does tomorrow, saying, hey, that might not be enough. But they came out and said, hey, look, we have the chance to go out and make the plays to go win it. And Coach Signetti, his confidence is so infectious. Because the pregame interview, he was talking with I think it was Julie Taffer. I don't forget who it was.
Jenny Taft.
Jenny Taft, and she mentions, hey, Indiana hasn't won here. It's like, we haven't played here. Like this team hasn't played here. And I just think that confidence that we can pull things out of any situation really helps this football team. And you're right about the Heisman odds, because, I mean, Fernando Mendoza has come in and really lit it up. And I know a lot of people are talking about Ty Simpson, but Mendoza had you talk about Heisman moments and how Diego Pavia probably had one against the Auburn defense. And now going on the road here in Happy Valley had to be another one.
Yeah, and honestly, there are no moral victories for you in college football.
For sure.
But I think if you were to look at for the Penn State side of things, you've now played the 2 guys that are tied for the favorite to win the Heisman, Julian Sand and Fernando Mendoza in back-to-back weeks. And you've slowly started to get better as the season has gone on. Now you're not losing games by a very large margin, but that game-winning drive, it just showed me something from Fernando Mendoza, especially after the interception that set up the touchdown for Penn State to go up.
Right.
Because then it's like, all right, what are we going to see out of this guy now coming back, game on the line, down by 4? What do you got, pretty much?
Right.
And he gets sacked on the first play of the drive. And here I am thinking, wow, Penn State's going to pull this off.
Yep.
Like I literally said that out loud. I was like, Penn State's going to get a huge win, something that they couldn't get under James Franklin, at least not since 2016.
Right.
And then it was just like, then Jim Knowles' defense just stopped playing defense.
Yeah.
And I think someone pointed out the celebration on the sack that could have played a big factor for the next play that got the first down.
When 33 had that sack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think it was 2nd and 18 or something, and then Mendoza just throws a 20-yard bomb over the middle in the seam, and it's first down. So the sack doesn't even mean anything anymore. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, they came up and they made all the plays. Indiana did. Did this win and the win over Oregon, if you're just comparing resumes, I know we've done this a lot with the teams, and we've seen the AP poll. AP poll hasn't changed. The first committee poll didn't change.
Right.
3 undefeated teams of note, the 3 major teams, I will say, Ohio State, Indiana, as well as Texas A&M. Of those 3, do you still think that Indiana's resume is better, or sorry, not still, because I'm putting words in your mouth, but do you think Indiana's resume is better than what you've seen so far from the other 2, the Aggies and the Buckeyes?
Well, I still think Indiana's better than Ohio State.
Oh, okay,
based on who they've played this year, who they've beaten. I mean, you look at Ohio State, the best win is probably Texas. I mean, they haven't really played anybody.
Right.
And honestly, you could make the argument that, they blew out Penn State, so therefore they should be the number 1. And Indiana struggled.
Right.
When you're at home, it's a lot different.
Yes.
I don't care if Penn State's bad this year. It's still tough to win in Happy Valley.
Right.
I mean, it's still a great atmosphere there. And if you look at it last year, I mean, Ohio State struggled with Penn State. They couldn't put them away.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It took Will Howard finally getting something going against his childhood team
Yes.
for you to finally win.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot that was his childhood team moving forward there. You talked about Fernando Mendoza and really stepping up when it matters and coming up with the big plays when it matters. And it just seems that he has done that throughout the course of this season, but especially there in Week 11. You see the numbers: 19 of 33, more than 200 yards, a passing touchdown, 1 interception on the ground, 20 rushing yards, 1 touchdown there for the Heisman Trophy. He's not the favorite right now, but he's certainly
he's tied for the favorite.
Yep. There you see right there. Oh yeah, so actually these odds actually are closer to what I've seen from before. Julian Sand, of course, is number 1. Mendoza there at number 2. Ty Simpson, Marcel Reed, Jeremiah Smith, Gunnar Stockton. If you have a Heisman vote, who you like?
You know, I would be interested to see what you think, because in my opinion right now, this has changed a lot over just this past week.
Right.
Because before this week, I was like, it's Ty Simpson. I mean, it's easily Ty Simpson.
Right.
But Ty had a chance to take a stranglehold on it this past weekend. Kind of dropped the ball a little bit for his standards and for the Heisman standards. I mean, you won the game.
Right.
But you didn't throw 2 touchdown passes for the first time all season. You threw 1. You still had 277 pass yards. Here's why I think Fernando Mendoza should win the Heisman over the guy that you just saw on your screen, Julian Sand. When you have 2 guys on the same side of the ball in the top 5 of the Heisman race.
Yes, exactly.
And when you have that guy right there, Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith is unbelievable.
How can you win the Heisman over guys like compare Indiana's best wide receiver to Jeremiah Smith? You can't.
That's a good point. Yeah.
All you got to do is just get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, and then your day is pretty much over.
Right.
What has Julian Sand showed me that Fernando Mendoza has?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, Ohio State's blowing these teams out. It's not based on what Julian Sand's doing, in my opinion.
Right.
It's based on partially what that guy's doing.
Yep.
Partially the fact that they haven't really played anybody. Their closest game was against Texas, 14-7. And it was Julian Sand's first start, but he still didn't show me anything.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Fernando Mendoza goes down, leads him on a game-winning drive.
Yep.
Keeps the unbeaten season alive, and you go into Eugene and you beat Oregon.
Right, exactly. And that was the big one to me is the Eugene game. And so when you think about Heisman, you think about moments. And as of right now, Julian Sand doesn't have a moment.
No.
And credit to him, he's played consistently, but like you said, he's got 2 of the best playmakers there in America.
Right.
I know the Heisman Trophy, and we get into a lot of these nuanced conversations because the Heisman Trophy, as well as like the MVP in football, the MVP in basketball, the MVP, that award is the most valuable player.
Yes.
The Heisman is the best player overall in college football. If I'm going to the best player overall in college football, to me, I can't give it to Marcel Reed. To me, if I had a vote, I'd probably vote for Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
Or a guy like Jeremiah Smith. I'm going to the best players.
I mean, Julian
overall.
Sand's not even the best player on his own offense.
That's the thing, yeah.
How can he be the favorite?
Yeah.
Because he's a quarterback on that offense.
That's the thing. So a lot of times, and they've muddied up a little bit the Heisman Trophy because now it looks to just go to the quarterback on the best team.
Right.
And not always, like you said, not always is that the best player on the team. A lot of times that's just a guy that's playing point guard, distributing the football, and just getting it out of harm's way. People can make a shot that say, "Oh, Ty Simpson's doing the exact same thing." He is making more plays, in my opinion, in that regard. And then the other 2 guys, Marcel Reed and Gunnar Stockton, they just don't have those moments. Gunnar Stockton might shock us all and come up with a huge game against Texas this upcoming weekend. And Texas, like Roger Rawls just said moments ago, they have everybody back.
Right.
Taft's back.
That's
members
huge.
on that D line are back again. So if Stockton does have a huge game, he can have that Heisman moment. I just don't see it right now.
And honestly, I don't see Gunnar Stockton winning it. Yeah, he might make it to New York, and I think Marcel Reed might make it to New York. I think Reed's early struggles in the season, they won games, but he struggled early on, and that's really, I think, what's going to hold him back. His Heisman moment was against LSU, but we've seen what LSU has turned into. I mean, he basically got Brian Kelly fired. But
exactly.
When you think about it, Indiana, Mendoza had his Heisman moment this past weekend. Ty Simpson had a chance for his Heisman moment. Hasn't gotten it yet, but still he could against a Brent Venables defense, even though I know there are some concerns about the secondary with that defense.
Right.
And honestly, I see if Alabama's able to take care of business, they're on a collision course for the SEC championship.
Right.
So, there's more chances there for him moving into the college football playoff race. But I just don't see Julian saying –
Me neither.
When it came out a couple weeks ago that Julian Sayin was the front runner for the Heisman, I was just shocked because what has he done?
Right.
I mean – I know everyone talks about hypothetical wins in the SEC and how the SEC loves to talk about the hypothetical wins.
Right.
You cannot tell me that Purdue's defense, like Purdue against Arkansas,
right?
I still think Arkansas is beating Purdue because, Arkansas is at the bottom of the SEC. They're still playing the SEC games close.
Right.
Arkansas would probably beat Purdue by 20 points.
I agree.
And another hypothetical win. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Because it's just the Big Ten top to bottom doesn't compete quite like the SEC does. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I was actually pulling up Saints numbers just to see what they were and if they were going to be gaudy enough to be able to win the award. And I don't see it.
I think it's the touchdowns that's keeping them in it right now. But how many interceptions does he have?
4.
This year? 4.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. So he's 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Nearly he'll get 2,500 yards coming up this week. Is at 2,491 right now. He's been sacked 5 times and it's been very nondescript, completing 81% of his passes too. So I think between the
maybe
completion percentage and the touchdowns, maybe that's the point that's kind of leaving him over. But as you said, he doesn't have a moment yet, and he's not even the best player on his own offense, his own side of the ball.
I mean, it's still Jeremiah Smith is the best player on Ohio State. If it were MVP, most valuable player, it'd still be Jeremiah Smith.
It'd still be him. We got a chance to hear from Kirk Cignetti about his QB1 that's now right up there in the Heisman odds.
That final drive, we weren't getting much done on offense the previous few drives. He had been hit quite a bit. He got sacked on first down. 2nd and 17, running clock, minute 30, our own 13, no timeouts, right? It wasn't looking real great at that point. And everybody responded, and it always does start with the quarterback. And, he stuck a few balls in the seam, made some throws. Our guys made some catches, and, all culminated in the last play. So, it was a great win and a real shot in the arm for our team who was down and out in a lot of people's minds and refused to lose and got it done.
Our next guest probably incensed that one guy named Diego Pavia isn't the one that's being talked about for the Heisman Trophy a lot more than guys like Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, and a few others. We head over to Nashville and catch up with Corey Curtis next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, our number 2 rolls on here. Patrick Walsh, Gerhard Mathangani with you, and pleased to be joined by Corey Curtis out of Nashville. We talked earlier, and he's happy. He's happy for a lot of reasons. So are a lot of people there in Nashville after pulling off one of the more entertaining wins there in the SEC this past week. Lots of storylines going in. A lot of them were based on Auburn's side, playing without Hugh Freeze for the first time since firing him. But then all the talk after
figuring out how to play offense.
Yes, it streamlined the offense. We'll get into that as well. But let's talk Diego Pavia first, because there has been a lot of talk about just the kind of personality he is. And we have seen.
I got my notes.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
got his notes.
I love it.
Yep.
There's a lot of talk about his personality. And but there's also a lot of talk now, and there has been all season, about him being a gamer. And he came out and he came to play. More than 377 yards, pair of touchdowns running, nearly 500 yards of total offense. What did you make of all number 2 there as he continues to just impress?
No player in college football means more to their team than Diego Pavia.
I agree.
There's no question about it whatsoever. I mean, you're talking about a guy who threw for almost 400 yards and then rushed for over another 100 in the same game. And I think I was on this show last week when I was told this was one of the top 3 defenses in the Southeastern Conference.
Yes, it was.
Vanderbilt fell behind by 17 points, and they put the ball in his hands, and they said, Diego, win us the game. And he went, and he won the game. And it's remarkable. I mean, we don't talk about this enough. He's a lot better than he was last year.
Yes.
He's a lot better thrower of the football. He's a lot better player. Now, having a better offensive line and better teammates in front of him certainly helps that as well. But, you go back to Texas when they fell behind big, and he got them within 3 points.
That's right.
So he's doing a lot more with his arm than he has in the past.
Right.
As I look at my Post-its of the Heisman candidates at quarterback, there are only 2 that have more yards than he does throwing the football. He has 2440. Ty Simpson has a whopping 21 more. And on top of that, Julian Sayin has a whopping 51 more.
Right.
Playing against middle schools. So, and neither of them sniffs what Diego does in the run game, which is 600 yards for the season, 5.2 per carry. He might have more rushing yards himself than Alabama does as a team.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They cannot run the football. He's over 3,000 yards, and there's nobody who's close to it. And what's always impressive for me in that guy's regard, they know he's coming.
Yeah.
He's getting the ball. It's like Clark Lee is saying, "Okay, stop him. I don't think you can." And
Yep.
And they couldn't. Now they did on one big play. I still can't believe they didn't kick that field goal.
Right.
But they got away with it. No, look, he's incredible. He's special. And if he was at Alabama or if he was at Ohio State, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yes.
They would just hand him the trophy.
Right.
Corey, I would say he wins the Heisman and I hate to say it, if it weren't for the Alabama game, honestly, and the 2 red zone turnovers. Then if he were to go into Tuscaloosa and knock off Alabama and give Kalen DeBoer his first home loss at the helm of Alabama, I'd say, he wins the Heisman, especially because of this game right here. But I think, when it's all said and done, he'll probably make it to New York. But I think that's the one game that holds him from winning the trophy.
Well, look. You got a guy at Ohio State and a guy at Alabama, each putting up really big numbers, and they're going to draw voters, and they rightfully should.
Right.
And then you've got Mendoza, who's putting up big numbers at Indiana, and they're there for the second year in a row, which I've got questions about. Is it more coach and system there than it is if it's quarterback? Because last year they brought a guy in from Ohio that nobody ever heard of and put up big numbers. And so, look, those other guys are going to draw that. Would Ty Simpson be doing what he's doing at Alabama at Vanderbilt?
No,
he wouldn't. He's surrounded by first-round picks.
Right.
Okay. And that's not to say he's not a great player. He's a great player.
For sure.
He is having a great year, and he's certainly worthy of not just Heisman votes, but first place Heisman votes. For me, and I just settled on this morning. I thought about this all weekend long.
Yeah.
This was my Titans didn't play this weekend, thank God. And this was my prevailing thought all weekend long is, can I vote for Pavia for Heisman? I mean, I was like, are you being a homer?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, it doesn't go to the best quarterback.
Right.
It goes to the best player in college football.
Yes.
He's the best player in college football. And I texted my mentor this morning, who happens to know Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia well. And I just said, hey, I think I'm voting for Pavia. And he said, well, he would certainly agree with you on that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know he would. But I ran through all the thoughts, and I'm like, it's about the best player.
Right.
And he's the best player. Now there's 2 more games to go, so a lot could change.
Right.
But for me, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
One of the big things about those Heisman moments, so to speak, is coming through against some of the better competition in those big games. Auburn, before that Vanderbilt game, had not allowed 25 points in any game so far this season. The upper crust of the SEC, one of the best there in the country. And then getting the win there in overtime and making the plays in the extra session to get it done. How big was this win, not just for Pavia and not just for the Heisman, but just for Vanderbilt overall? I know coming into the game, Vandy was seen as the better football team. They had to scratch and claw their way through it, though.
Yeah, look, every game for Vanderbilt's a playoff game right now. Okay, so it is win or it's over. Because Clark Lee talked about it after the game. They are concerned with the playoffs, and that's it. That is their singular goal right now, is making the playoffs. So, they fell behind. Was it 17-3 or 20-3 in this game? Right. And when you have a guy like Diego Pavia, it prevents the rest of the team from panicking. Because they believe he will get them back in the football game, which he did against Texas and which he did again in this one. But yeah, all of the pressure was on Vanderbilt. There's no pressure on Auburn in this game. So Vanderbilt had absolutely everything to lose. Their defense is struggling right now, especially on the perimeter. We worried about speed on the outside being a problem for them, and it has begun to be exploited. And unless they can find a way to get it corralled, you really worry about what's going to happen in Knoxville. Can they score enough points to keep up with that Vol offense on that day, in what will likely be a win and get in type of game? But because this was not a good Auburn offense.
No, it wasn't. No,
and it was a juggernaut on Saturday. They could not stop it. So they've got some stuff to figure out. But it's a huge win, and I know Kentucky. They just plowed Florida. They're all huge games. They're all playoff games the rest of the way.
Absolutely. We got a chance to hear from Clark Lee about the playoffs and just what this game and what this rest of the season means as far as the postseason.
I said this to the team today in the hotel. That we're out of opportunities. Everything's at stake, and the mission's winning. So, if at some point we're dealt a blow, and we'll still be on mission. But until otherwise, we're aiming for those playoffs, and that's important to us. Right now, it's going to have the best bye week we've ever had. Let's get freshened up and get rested. Then we'll shift our attention to Kentucky, and obviously you've got a two-game stretch run here at the end to close it out. But yeah, we own those words.
So obviously the playoff talk is what they were talking about right now, as far as they're not making any bones about it. Hey, this is not like go 1-0, all that kind of stuff. What do you think the message is this week with the team? I know that they'll have limited time as far as on the practice field and whatnot, but what do you think the message is this week as they prepare for those final 2 games?
Well, you got to be ready. You can't. You can't look at Kentucky's record, because they just beat Florida by 30.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And you've seen college football in the last couple of weeks look like pro football, where teams that aren't supposed to win are winning because the field with NIL is more spread out, and it's maybe a little bit more even than people realize that it is. Cal just knocked off Louisville. Wake Forest just knocked off Virginia. We can go all over the place, and find games. I mean, it's happened for 2 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So I will tell you guys what I tell you every week. Vanderbilt can totally lose this football game. They are not above losing this football game. They almost lost Missouri and Auburn. Now they're 3-0 against Tigers. They're out of Tigers to play against this year. So that's a problem. But they have to be ready. They have to fix their defense.
Yeah.
They have to fix, because the problem is they're giving up so many points early. It's taking them out of their game.
Right.
Which is running the football and controlling the clock, and then making teams play from behind against them.
Right.
But they're getting beat in the passing game early, and it's a big problem. You've got to expect Kentucky. I don't care if they've got a guy with one arm and 3 fingers over there. They're going to be slinging the football to start the football game.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's what everybody's doing to the Commodores, and they've got to figure that out.
There's only so many times you have to be able to punch left-handed, so to speak, and still be able to come away with wins in this very, very tough league. Let's switch over to basketball for a quick second.
All right.
More than 100 points in 2 straight games to open the season.
105 on the dot.
Yes, 105 on the dot, 2 times in a row. What do you make of what you've seen so far from Coach Boynton and this team and the staff, as they, in my opinion, obviously there's not a ton of expectations going in the year, but this offense looks to be dynamic.
Look, they've got expectations.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And I owe Mark Byington an apology, because when he was hired, I viewed him as an uninspired hire, and the best that they could do. Okay, that was what I viewed it as.
Right.
He has done a wonderful job. I mean, he took over a dumpster fire. Bryce Drew and Jerry Stackhouse, let's not sugarcoat it. They both did an awful job.
Right. And they were named.
They both succeeded in not winning at a school that's traditionally won a lot of games.
Right.
All right. Congratulations. Congratulations. You did worse than everyone else.
Right.
You made us long for the return of Kevin Stallings being upset about everything every
Is that how you felt about Callahan?
I got whole other feelings about all those guys. No, Vrabel was 6-18 his last 24 games. He wasn't any better, guys.
Right.
All right. Because there's an old saying in the NFL: players, not plays.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Because Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl.
That's true. Yeah.
And he was not a genius.
Right.
Okay. So, you got to have players. In college football is much the same way, college basketball. But Mark Byington has done a wonderful job of bringing in players that can do what he wants them to do and fit his puzzle the way he wants them to fit. He knew in this offseason that they needed to get bigger. They weren't big enough last year. And so they've gotten bigger, and they can still clearly shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
105 points in back-to-back games. And they absolutely, wholeheartedly, 199% expect to be a part of the NCAA tournament and expect to compete in the Southeastern Conference. So, they aren't hoping, things go our way. They think they're one of the better teams in the country.
For sure.
All right. And I think I saw on the coaches poll, they're 26. They're the first team out.
Right.
So they're making some waves. There are some people already noticing them. They got votes on the AP poll, but in the coaches poll, they're right there. They're right there. They're a good basketball team. They've spent well in the portal, finding the right players. And, I just keep thinking about Dabo Swinney.
Right.
And how things have fallen apart at Clemson. Boo-hoo. Because he refuses to acknowledge NIL and the portal.
Yes.
All right. Because, God forbid somebody make money other than him.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And give me a break.
I know.
But,
it's
Vanderbilt
annoying.
And Mark Byington, embraced the way it is. They lost some people. They let some people go who helped them last year because he wanted to be better.
Yes.
He wanted to be better.
Yeah.
And so he let some people go. He took their money, gave it to somebody else, said, these guys can make us better. And so Mark Byington I would say one of the more underrated coaches in the country right now.
Right.
For the job he has done at Vanderbilt, because he came in and took over a dumpster fire and immediately took them to the NCAA tournament and made them better. I mean, look, I never saw that coming.
Oh
last
yeah,
year.
yeah.
And then when he told me this year that they're going to be better, I was like, okay, well, I got no reason to doubt him. But I didn't expect him to put up 210 in the first.
Yeah, 210 in the first 2 games. I just had to pull up the Ken Palm ratings. They're 5th right now in offensive ratings. So I mean, like they're 5th in the country. So they're.
Well, where are the 2 teams they played in defensive ratings? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, UCF's not really a team to, be like, hey, I mean, they're a bad team. I mean, they play in the Big 12.
Right.
The new college basketball crown tournament that launched last year, they played in the championship. They lost to Nebraska, but I mean, they're still a good basketball team playing in what's turned into a basketball-heavy conference.
Yeah, biggest state school in Florida. I mean,
Central
Florida's not a mid-major.
Right.
Right.
They're not. Like you said, they're in the Big 12 now, and shoot, I just saw the Lady Vols squeak by UT Martin. You never know what's gonna happen this early in the season, and especially like in this era of the portal, and you're bringing so many new pieces together every year, and there are many schools in the same case.
Right.
To start this quickly is very impressive.
Yes, exactly, especially with all these new faces. And he's doing a great job to start out the season. Really entertaining basketball there. Corey, thank you so much for your time and your insight there on Commodore Athletics.
But I appreciate it, and I'm really glad because I keep looking. My hair is really on point today.
It is. No, you're having a great hair day.
And thankfully, the biggest part is it's still mine.
Exactly. Corey, you're the best, man. Thank you.
You guys have a good one.
That is Corey Curtis and his perfect hair.
Perfect hair.
and he's been saying this from Jump Street that this Vanderbilt team, their goal is to make the playoffs. We all, I think, not we, just us, but there was a lot of people around the country that laughed. Now they're 2 games away from it, essentially.
Well, they got to have a perfect end of the season, and they've got to have the perfect circumstances around them to happen because they need Texas to lose, which I could see. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost to either A&M or Georgia.
Right.
And then they need Oklahoma to lose this weekend. And honestly, they've got to be huge Pitt Panther fans because that'll knock Notre Dame out of any chance right there.
Right.
And that's how Vanderbilt could sneak in, but a lot has to fall in line. They have to win out. That's the most important thing.
Right.
But as you mentioned, the defense is a little bit suspect right now, especially when you've got Tennessee just 3 weeks away and with how good their offense is.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so there is a path for the Commodores. Huge win over Auburn at home in overtime. Keep it here. We'll talk Oklahoma Sooner football next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus Hour number 2 rolls on, and we will head over to Oklahoma City now. We will talk one of the biggest games in all of college football for a lot of reasons. We talked about the stakes this week. There's a lot of definitive games that will determine the playoff picture. I believe this is going to be one of them as well. Brian Brinkley joins us from OKC. Brian, first off, how was the week overall? I know Oklahoma got a chance to rest and hang out for a little while, getting ready for Alabama there. How was the week for you and your sports team?
It was good for us. We need a little break here with the NBA already underway. Now college basketball is underway, so it's kind of a good, as coaches like to say, it was a good time for the bye week. But as far as Oklahoma is concerned, I think, Ben Arbuckle, like multiple times, talked today about how he thought that they approached the bye week in a real good way and did the work. They weren't just looking ahead to their 3 or 4 day vacation. I mean, he probably would have said that anyway, but both Brent maybe wouldn't. Brent would call out his guys probably if they didn't, but both Brent and Ben seem to think that they really went about their work in a good way, as Bob Stoops would say in the old days. So OU comes in with a lot of confidence. Obviously a major challenge, though, in Tuscaloosa Saturday.
Absolutely. These last 5 games has been a win over Kent State, a loss against Texas, a win over South Carolina, a loss against Ole Miss, and then a win against Tennessee. What do you feel like needs to be a thread that needs to stick with this football team to be able to put together a nice winning streak and get themselves in the final 12?
I think 2 things down the stretch are going to be critical, not just Saturday, but the final 2 games of the year with Missouri and LSU. One, running the football. They got to continue to improve there. And defensively, they got to get some turnovers. I mean, we saw how huge that turnover was on the R. Mason Thomas fumble return against Tennessee. It just totally turned the tide of that game. I mean, OU was getting run over at that point, and it just changed the momentum drastically. So as good as OU's defense has been, they haven't had a lot of takeaways this year. They've gotten a little better in the last month or so, but I think they're going to have to get some. And they're going against the best team in the country in turnover margin on Saturday.
No question. I think the last time that Oklahoma played, and the numbers don't necessarily bear it out, but the way that the play was for John Mateer, it felt like he was back. And it felt like we were saying that for the first time since he broke his hand against the Auburn Tigers. What did you make of the bye week for him and being able to get some time away? And then coming off this last game, do you think he could continue to build on that, he, Arbuckle, and the rest of the offense?
Oh, I think the bye week is probably a big boost for him, just for no other reason, just to kind of rest up a little bit, because he got banged around against Tennessee because he ran the ball so much.
Right.
And so I'm sure that probably helped him to have the off week. And then it reminded everyone about how dangerous he is as a runner. So Alabama's got to be wary of a lot of things with John Mateer, and that's why I think OU's running back game is going to be important. They've got to be able to use more than just Mateer. They need Xavier Robinson to run like he's been running lately, and hopefully get Torrey Blaylock back to where he was earlier in the season.
Absolutely. What about this defense for the Oklahoma defense? Obviously, Alabama right now, they have one of the Heisman Trophy favorites in Ty Simpson. We've seen what Ryan Williams can do, and Jeremy Bernard and some of the playmakers there for the Alabama offense. What is your take for what this defense needs to do to continue to step up?
I think no doubt they've got to be able to put pressure on Simpson. I think that's something that they probably can do. That's going to be critical in this game. Keep Simpson as uncomfortable as possible. And OU, they run in, Brent runs in all kinds of, there's great depth there in the front 7 for Oklahoma. They're going to be running guys in and out, trying to keep everybody fresh, I would imagine. And it's going to be, I would envision Brent sitting down and having all kinds of different packages he's ready to throw at Alabama. I mean, this is what Brent Venables lives for, taking on a team like Alabama, a great offense, and seeing what he can come up with, go into the lab, so to speak, and cook up something good on defense.
For sure. Last time we saw this team on the road there in Knoxville, they were quieting more than 100,000 Vols fans that had aspirations for the college football playoff. Now going back on the road there in Tuscaloosa, the game 2 weeks ago has to give them so much confidence as they move forward. But what are some of the keys you think in the game, inside those 60 minutes that they'll have to do to execute to be able to get yet another big win on the road?
One thing, I think Oklahoma's getting used to what an SEC road game is like, because gone to, not all of them because it takes a while to get to all the other 15, but well, other 14, I guess, throw out Texas. But they're starting to get used to it, and now they have a couple of road wins this year, and so they're gaining some confidence there. Obviously, this is going to be a very difficult place to play. Oklahoma has won there before in this century. Alabama wasn't quite as good back then, but it has been done. And then I think you can't discount the confidence OU gained from beating Alabama last year at home. I think that is a huge help going in. Most of the time, I think what happened the year before doesn't really matter, but considering that was OU's first year in the league, playing the flagship, school in the league and the SEC, and to get that win and to do it the way they did it, I think is a big confidence push. And there's a bunch of guys back, especially from the defensive side of the ball from that game. And both coaches are going to downplay what happened last year, and they already have, from what I've heard. But I think that's a big boost. As far as what happens in the game, like I said, I think that turnovers are going to be key. OU's got to be able to run the ball. If you can't run the ball on the road in the SEC, you're going to be in trouble. And to be able to mix it up, have Mateer do some running back game, and then to be able to throw the ball when they need to make big plays against Alabama.
Absolutely. We got a chance to hear from Coach Brent Venables on facing Tide quarterback Ty Simpson.
His dad's a college football coach, and so he's been around the game, and so he's got good instincts for it. Again, well-versed in, what they're trying to do, and then understanding what he's seeing. But he's got great maturity, really good decision-making, very decisive. He's got great arm talent. And, again, keeps him out of bad plays. You go back and, again, their turnover margin, they lead the SEC in turnover margin. And that there's not a stat that's more important than that. And taking care of the football, making good decisions, not putting them in harm's way is the job of the quarterback. And when you've got good players, you've got good coaches, and you take care of the ball, good things, will happen. I think since 23, when we've won the turnover margin, I think we're 16-0. And so that's just, that's something that they've done at a really high level. I think a year ago, I don't know where exactly they ranked a year ago at this time, but it wasn't, they're not in the same place from a, taking care of a ball standpoint.
So I think all these teams that have 2 losses sit in a very precarious situation because, you're right outside of the college football playoff, but you have obviously Texas with 2 losses, Vandy with 2 losses, even outside of the SEC. A few of those teams have a pair of losses as well. How do you think that the coach and the coaching staff helps balance their shot at the playoffs, what these games can mean for the playoffs, and at the same time, too, being able to focus on what they have to do because everything else is outside of their control?
Yeah, I think for the coaches, and you hear Kalen DeBoer talk about it all the time about, shutting out the outside noise and focusing on what you have to do. And Brent's the same way with that. And the way it is, the SEC, you have to focus each week or you're going to get run out of the stadium.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're daydreaming about possibly going to Pasadena or Miami or something in a playoff game, you better get focused straight away. And that's what's great about the SEC. You better come with it every week. And I don't think either team's going to have a problem with that this week because this is a huge game. Obviously, for Oklahoma, it's in effect an elimination game for the playoff. Alabama's got a little more room to play with, but they obviously, this could affect whether they're hosting a playoff game or getting a bye or whatever. So they got plenty on the line as well.
Absolutely. Let's pivot over to basketball. We talked the fact that you have the NBA going on there. You have the world's best professional basketball team, but on the college side as well. The Sooners opened up with a really tough test. Obviously, Gonzaga is a perennial power. Now, they haven't won a national championship yet, but they're perennial power there in college basketball. What do you make of the Sooners so far early in this season?
Yeah, that was a rough go in Spokane. But that's why you play games like that in November. It was essentially a Gonzaga home game, obviously, only it was worse because there were more people in the stands than there is at Gonzaga's normal gym. Right. But that's what Porter Moser, as upset as he was that night, that's why you play those games. And it showed a lot of weaknesses for Oklahoma. I didn't think they played very well together. Defensively, they were not good. They were just getting dominated in the paint, dominated on the glass. So they got a ways to go. Now, Gonzaga's a really good basketball team, but OU's clearly got a ways to go. And there's so many newcomers on this team this year. There's only 2 guys who really played at all last year that are back. This is a kind of game where you go, this is what we need to work on. And
Yeah.
that was a game that exposed those weaknesses in Oklahoma. Good thing is it's November 10th, so I got plenty of time to start improving there.
Absolutely. You mentioned Porter Moser. We got a chance to hear from him about the Oklahoma Sooner bench.
I thought it really hurt when Mo got the fouls. You know, I thought we came out, but the guys had a great mentality coming out. We got some good stops early. We got some good things early. And then it kind of just, and we had such a long time. I mean, the game wasn't, you know, but to get 2 fouls before the first media, and we just kind of, everyone on the team kind of knows it, you know, then having to go small ball, and I got to help our young freshman big get ready. He got thrown into the fire pretty early today. But you know, it just our bench is I really have confidence, but they're all kind of new. They're all, I mean, we have you know, we have 9 players scholarship dress. 3 of them, this is their first 2 games in college basketball. And then Dayton was a freshman last year, but Kai Rogers, Jeff Wanko, and Kual Atok. So our benches, we just got to get them more experienced. They're good. I think they're going to be good players for us. But we really got, you know, that bench was a differentiation too.
Really interesting non-conference schedule for the Sooners. They got Nebraska in a couple of weeks, and then Marquette, Wake Forest, Arizona State. How do you see this team being able to stack up as they, as you said, collect some key experience before they walk into SEC play?
Yeah, I think that's why Porter probably scheduled the way he did, because and I think going forward, this is the way you're going to have to do it, because it's college basketball. It seems like it's exponentially worse than college football as far as turnover goes and your player personnel.
Right.
So you've got to be able to see what can these guys do before you get around to conference play, because you don't want to play a bunch of cupcakes, get around to the SEC and just get started, you know, get run out of the arena because you haven't been playing quality competition. So I think that was intentional on the part of Porter. And they play Oklahoma State, too, who so far looks pretty good. That'll be a neutral site game in Oklahoma City coming up in December. So I think those are necessary for this team. They've got a lot of veteran experience. They just haven't played together. But you got to see what they can do when they get thrown in the fire against quality non-conference competition.
Absolutely. Brian, thank you so much for your time. You got a lot going on there. The Sooners were off last week. Bama, a big one this week. And then, of course, obviously, a lot going on with college basketball and in the NBA. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Brian Brinkley from Oklahoma City. I mean, you're sitting in a really good spot there. You got the bye week. Got to enjoy some hoops, both in the NBA. I know they lost their first game, but Oklahoma City did. Lost the first game, but lots of exciting things to get hyped up about as far as basketball and football goes for the Sooners this year.
Yeah, big one this weekend. Basically an elimination game. I just don't see with the loss to Texas that Oklahoma can get in with 3 losses. They would need, like we talked about with Corey Curtis a little while ago, they would just need mass chaos to go on.
Right.
The ACC to continue to implode. I think they're still only going to get 1 game, but need Notre Dame to lose this weekend for any hopes of that. But on the basketball side, I think it's going to be a little bit interesting here for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We talked about, you don't want to schedule the cupcakes. I mean, who knows what Marquette in the past has been a very good basketball program under Coach Shaka Smart. Marquette just I think they just lost by 30 to Indiana this past weekend. So it'll be interesting to see Oklahoma moving forward.
Absolutely, no question. And, of course, the Oklahoma football team put the nail in the coffin for Tennessee. We'll see if they can keep their playoff hopes alive with a win in Tuscaloosa. Keep it right here on Southeast Sports Plus. We will close up today's show. Closing up shop here on a Monday, former coach here in the SEC, assistant coach under Nick Saban, Brian Daboll, the next head coach fired in the NFL. Word out today, the New York Jets are parting ways with Daboll. There you see 2-8 this year, a ridiculously awful loss this past week, and then also the one a few weeks ago to the Denver Broncos there as well. Had a lead there in Week 10 against the Bears. Wasn't enough, and we have seen this franchise be in a bit of upheaval here for the last few years.
Fourth head coach fired by the New York Giants in the last 8 years. Now this one, I don't really a move had to be made.
Yeah.
I just don't know if firing Brian Daboll was really the answer. I think you got to look at, your general manager that basically let Saquon just walk to your division rival and then win a Super Bowl right away. I mean, you saw what Brian Daboll was doing with the offense. The offense, it seemed like they started to click once Russell Wilson got benched for Jackson Dart. I've been very outspoken how I think Jackson Dart was the best quarterback in the 2025 draft, and he showed it to me so far. But it seemed like things started to change a little bit yesterday when he left with a concussion.
And they did, and rocking those old school uniforms, but not enough to pull away with the win. 17 touchdowns there in 9 games. As Jackson Dart continues to struggle, as you said, with those concussions. And, of course, Cam Scatterboo, he's also out with injury there as well. So it looked like there was so much, positive momentum, positive energy for this football team in a lot of different ways, but weren't able to put it all together here. As far as what's next for the Giants, you mentioned it, 4 head coaches in 8 years. In my opinion, if I'm a coach, this job is toxic. Because here they are finally going in the right direction, and they fire their head coach once again. This is a general manager who was seen on tape, not listening to his own kid about what quarterback to pick, and then also trading away Saquon Barkley. It feels to me that the coach has been the scapegoat for things that are not under his control.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about Scatterboo being out. I mean, you can go down the list. Dart is now out, maybe for the next game. That's your quarterback right now. That could be your franchise quarterback. Cam Scatterboo, who looked to be your lead back, out for the rest of the year with an ankle injury. Your best wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, has been out for pretty much. I think Jackson Dart got 1, maybe 2 games with Malik Neighbors. I mean, how is there are issues rooted in the Giants franchise, and honestly, you could easily make the argument that there are issues rooted in both New York franchises, especially the Jets. I mean, the curse of Joe Namath. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to be able to turn that one around. I think it's still too early. We saw what happened with Dan Campbell in his first year. And, I mean, he had the emotional press conference that everyone remembers. And now look what he's done. He took over play calling this week and just absolutely obliterated the Commanders. Now, on this side, I feel like firing Brian Daboll was not the right decision. And I think a team over in Orchard Park is glad that New York fired him, especially after, the performance they had against the Miami Dolphins yesterday. I would definitely take Brian Daboll back if I were the Bills.
I was about to ask, do you think that loss puts McDermott on the hot seat and a possibility for Daboll to come in?
Now, I don't see it like that. But since we're talking about the SEC, maybe, there's one guy that's in consideration for the LSU job. That's Joe Brady. What's Joe Brady's position with the Bills right now? Offensive coordinator. Who was the former offensive coordinator for the Bills? Brian Daboll. So the carousel is just going to keep on coming around. And Brian Daboll graduated from the University of Rochester, which is about an hour away from Buffalo.
Okay, no, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So he's got those. He's got
the Western New York roots.
Right. And so it will be interesting to see if he goes and or stays. So I was actually going to ask you, what do you think? What is next for Daboll? But here you see some of the reasons why he was fired. Their final record: 20-40-1, 2-8 this year. Made the playoffs back in 2022. NFL Coach of the Year. Things are looking good. Things are looking positive. But 4 blown double-digit leads late. The one that against the Broncos stands out. The one on Sunday stands out there as well. Where do you think that the New York Giants go from here?
Well, I think before the season, I might have said this on this show, And I was pointing out to 3 weeks later from right now that obviously Brian Daboll came into the season on the hot seat, just hasn't been able to replicate the 2022 performance where he won Coach of the Year.
Right.
The Giants don't have a bye week this week, but they do in 3 weeks. And that's when I was like, you know what? I would keep an eye out for Bill Belichick to come back to the NFL ranks. Now, we've seen how UNC has turned out this year, but it seems like they're starting to turn the corner
won 2
here.
in a row,
They won two in a row, trying to get back to a bowl game.
Right.
If they don't get to a bowl game, UNC's season is going to be done by the time the Giants' bye week is. So I know Mike Kafka is the interim head coach right now.
Right.
He could be the interim head coach for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You got Bill Belichick. Maybe he wants one more shot at the NFL. And then he goes up to East Rutherford.
He's got a lot of familiarity with the Giants. He has a boat. I think his boat is called it's 8 rings. His boat is called 8 rings, and it's all the rings that he's won as a coach. But everybody's like, oh, you won 6 with the Patriots. But keep in mind, he won 2 as a defensive coordinator for Bill Parcells with the New York Giants. And I think there's always been a soft spot in his heart
and
for
the
program.
Giants kind of got him out of 2 more.
Yes.
Specifically Eli Manning.
Correct. And so I do think that there might be something there for Brian Daboll if he does.
And he wants to get back at Robert Kraft,
too. He does. I think he wants to get back to the pros for sure. I think that he's understood that college is not his game. I think he is a pro guy.
Yeah.
And this could be interesting for him. Is there any chance that you think Daboll goes back to college? Or do you think he stays in the NFL?
No, I really see him going back to Buffalo. I mean, they need something right now. Josh Allen, he had an MVP caliber season, but the ups and the downs have just not been good.
Right.
I think he's either an offensive analyst with the Bills or Joe Brady leaves and then he becomes the offensive coordinator.
There could be a pipeline here from the SEC back up to where we play our professional football there in New York. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Monday Southeast Sports Plus. We'll see you tomorrow.